And he says, well, I don't want to post it because then other people that are having problems will ask for help too.
Well, isn't that the freaking point? You are absolutely exposing yourself to potential liability.
600,000. Yeah.
Oh, cheap. Nothing. That's like nothing. That's like 3 homes for most people. And that's why Lee was like, wait. Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to your favorite show on the internet, Raw Law Unfiltered, with your favorite host of all time, the DUI Guy. Plus, today we are going to be covering something very special. But before we get there, don't forget we are on a new schedule. Every day at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, we have a video premiering right here, right then. 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. I think that's midnight European Central Time. Very, very important. Don't forget to tune in. Also, every Saturday at the exact same time, 6 p.m. Eastern, I'm going to be going live. Today, I have a special guest. She goes by Liz Amazing. So her name is Liz. Liz, I have found through one of my subscribers who have sent me a link about her, and I watched a couple of her videos where what she does is she reviews recreational vehicles, also known as RVs. And recreational vehicles, as you all know, it's basically like a mobile home. You can practically live in it. You can travel cross country. They have bathrooms, a lot of them. They have kitchens, beds. Some of them are big enough to even have a living area and television. It's a whole home on wheels. I'm going to let Liz tell the story, but essentially, just to give you a little preview, turns out that she found some sort of defect in one of the RVs she has been reviewing. And when the manufacturer of the RV found out, they tried to buy her and change her opinion. And I'm going to let Liz fill you in on exactly what happened. How are you doing, Liz?
I'm doing great, Larry. Thank you for having me on the show. Yes, my channel has taken a turn because I was talking about RV life. I'm a full-time RVer. I've been on the road 5.5 years. And then I started noticing in the Facebook groups that I belong to of other RVers, people would buy a new RV and they'd have a boatload of problems. I mean, I'm talking leaky roofs or ripped roofs, the tanks that hold the wastewater leaking, just all kinds of problems. And RVs have gone up so much in price. So most people I've been talking to, they'll have $150,000 RV. And that's not even a lot of money. That's just for something like a fifth wheel. And I was seeing all these stories on Facebook of people just having heartbreaking problems. And then they go back to the dealer or the manufacturer, and both of them are like, nope, sorry. Can you imagine spending, say, $150,000 on a car? I mean, you think it's going to be perfect for $150,000.
I can, but most of our audience probably can't. So continue. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. But if you spend that kind of money, you expect it to be perfect. And
Yes.
So about 8 months ago, I started using my platform as a force of good. And I started interviewing buyers that would have these heartbreaking stories. And I started publicly shaming the companies, basically saying, hey, do right by your customers. You're selling this. They're expecting it to work. People I interviewed that never got to use their Winnebago, for example, because they took it home and it was raining inside. I mean, it was horrible. They spent $160,000 on this thing, never could use it. And this is Winnebago. This is a big company that you figure they should have figured it out by now, how to make something that's leak proof.
Like when it rains, it just seeps in through the roof.
Everywhere. They had it like this was like a thing, like a van you drive. So like on the console, at their feet, where the brake pedal was. I mean, it was just crazy.
How do you make such a horrible design flaw upon release? That just makes no sense to me.
So what happened is the RV industry exploded during COVID. Everybody was locked down. They couldn't go to Disney World. They couldn't go on a cruise. So they bought an RV. And I think RV sales went up 700% during COVID. I don't know the numbers for sure, but it was huge. And instead of saying, well, we can't maintain our quality, the RV industry in general said, well, let's just kick them out the door. Let's just slap them together and kick them out the door. And now there's a phrase, COVID campers, because there's a lot of campers out there that were very poorly built. In addition to that, these companies have been bought out by these big investment groups, and it's all about making money for the investors, not building a quality product.
They're more concerned about their bottom line than they are about the consumer who's receiving the tail end of the product.
Exactly. So the video that you're referencing, two things happened, two separate things happened. One, I was helping customers helping buyers that owned a Tiffin. They had a drivable motorhome that was made of fiberglass, and they had some serious problems with it. And Tiffin said, sorry about your luck. You've had it over a year. Your warranty expired at a year. Sorry. Well, their problems, they spent over $200,000 on this motorhome. The motorhome was cracking. It was fiberglass. So like a Corvette, but only a motorhome, right?
Yeah.
It was cracking on the roof. The last 6 times they took it out, they got a crack on it. There was cracking on the sides. This is a serious problem. So either there's something wrong with the fiberglass, or more likely something wrong with the frame not strong enough. So what I did was I contacted Tiffin, and I heard from Lee Tiffin, who's the president. Now, Tiffin's a $600 million a year company owned by Thor. Thor is a huge company. They're probably billions. They own Airstream and all kinds of other big companies, but just Tiffin's 600 million. And Lee said, yeah, I'll go on camera and talk to you and I'll help out these people. And I was like, great. And then, yeah, he got an entire executive team together. There was like 5 of us. And right before we were to go on camera, he says, hey, let's just talk off the record. Let's, not record. And so I said, okay. And we had a 20-minute conversation, and 18 minutes of that was them saying, Liz, don't post this video. We don't want you to post this video. And first, Lee
Which
said,
video is that? Sorry.
This was the video about the people with the cracking camper.
You haven't posted it yet.
I did post it.
So how can they say, don't post this video? I'm sorry. I'm a little lost.
Oh, I'm sorry. So because this leads up to the question that you asked. I got trapped. Not trapped. I learned something from this Tiffin experience that I took with me to this new experience with Lippert. And that was never, ever, ever talk off the record. Because in this conversation, Lee was saying, don't post this video, which I ended up posting, but he said, don't post this video. What can we do so you don't post this video? And I had 18 minutes of pressure and intimidation and bullying with him and his executive team trying to get me not to post a video about this cracking motorhome. And I said, Tiffin, Tiffin, I said, Lee, you will look like a hero for helping these people out. So I am going to post this video. And he says, well, I don't want to post it because then other people that are having problems will ask for help too.
Well, isn't that the freaking point? Sorry.
Exactly. Stand by your product, help your people. You're a multi-million dollar company. Just serve your customers. So they spent this 18 minutes trying, saying stuff. What can we do for you? Let's make you a Tiffin ambassador. What can we do for you so that you don't publish this video? So it was pretty clear to me.
And you don't even own a Tiffin.
No. So it was pretty clear to me that they were going to give me a Tiffin if I didn't publish the video.
How much is a brand new Tiffin, by the way? Like an average one?
600,000. Yeah.
Oh, cheap. Nothing. That's like nothing. That's like 3 homes for most people.
Right. Nothing for Lee Tiffin. And he said, we'll fly you out. We'll give you a tour of the factory. You can do regular content for us about Tiffin and how wonderful Tiffin is. And so they tried to buy me out. They did take care of the customers. I did post that video because I felt like that's the only way, is to hold their feet to the fire, get them to do the right thing. But I learned from that, I'm never going off record. I don't want that kind of pressure of, take this video down and stuff. So that was a great learning for me. And I never did share that story until I had this thing with Lippert. So the Lippert thing was, I did 2 videos. So there's basically people who have these large trailers, particularly fifth wheels. What's happened is more and more people
for the audience who may not be familiar, sorry, Liz, what is a fifth wheel? You mentioned that a couple times now.
In RVs, there's so many different kinds. There's motorhomes, like ones that you drive, and there's towables, which are your typical travel trailer. Think Fred Flintstone or, anybody with like a little travel trailer. Fifth wheels are also a travel trailer, but they hitch onto the bed of the truck, not behind the truck, but they overhang the bed of the truck. These are like
semis. Semis have the fifth wheel. Very common, right? There's the semi trucks.
Yes, but you can tow it with a 3/4 ton or a half ton, 1 ton. A regular heavy duty pickup truck can tow a fifth wheel. And there has been some problems with the frames of these fifth wheels. And what's been happening because of COVID and because of this nomadic life is more and more people are buying an RV not for weekends, but to live in year round and travel. So they've gotten bigger, and now there's fireplaces, washers and dryers, that kind of stuff in them. So they're big and heavy. But the belief is that these frames have been under engineered and now they're failing. And that's what's going on with Tiffin. I have probably maybe 6 or 8 personal friends who have these big RVs. All of them but one are experiencing frame failure. And I am serious. I have good friends right now. So imagine you're living in your RV, you're having a wonderful life, and then you have a problem with the frame. They were in Arizona. They had to drive all the way to the factory, which is in Indiana, had to move all their stuff out. So far, they spent $1,200 on a motel while this frame is being fixed. And I say fixed because how do you fix a frame that is under engineered? Now they're adding gussets and extra pieces, but I mean, this is the foundation of the RV. So Lippert is actually not an RV maker. They're an RV component maker. They are a multi-billion-dollar company. They provide the frames for probably 80 or 90% of the RV market, from travel trailers to fifth wheels. I mean, they are a huge company. And what has been happening is these frames have been failing first on the big ones, like the big fifth wheels, the long ones, the 40, 45 feet long fifth wheels.
Makes sense because they're the bigger ones. They have more weight. Their gravity is doing its job. Okay.
Yes. And they have been failing. It was originally called frame flex. And now there is naturally going to be some flex in the frame. So the correct phrase is broken frame. And that's exactly what I've been seeing from my friends, from people I've had on the channel. The frame has been breaking. And the only solution is to take it back to the factory, strip it down, add some more structural pieces of metal. But if the frame is breaking in the front, what's to stop it from breaking in the back? How and to do that, I mean, it's got to be so expensive. I mean, not, to do that, stripping it down and getting to the frame. It's really scary. There is talk of a recall. People want a recall, this is from the buyer standpoint. Yeah.
I want to go back to the beginning. I want to talk about the engineering. How much, if anything, have you found out about any potential engineering structural defects at the outset? I don't know how deep down the rabbit hole did you go, but I'm curious to know because I just thought of the Ford Pinto. If you remember the Ford Pinto, the Ford manufacturer in the 1970s, for those of you who are not familiar with the story, Ford had a decision to make. They could have reinforced, since the gas tank was in the back, they had a decision to make. They could have paid an extra $10, $15, which at the time would be maybe $150, $200 today in today's dollars. But $10 to $15 in that day and age to reinforce the gas tank in the rear, and they chose not to. They said, well, it'll be fine. Well, the problem is with the Ford Pinto, people started crashing, just having minor accidents at 30 miles an hour or 25 miles an hour, I think were some of the slowest ones. And the rear tank would explode and incinerate and burn everybody in the car. And people would just burn to death. There was no time to escape because of the explosion and the fire. Gasoline is very flammable. And so there are all these lawsuits against the Ford Pinto. And that's why they took it off the market. And you don't see any Ford Pintos anymore. You haven't for about 50 years. So I'm wondering, how deep did the rabbit hole go and how deep you went down the rabbit hole, if at all, or if that's in your future plans? Maybe you can tell us, for your audience, for my audience, find an engineering flaw. If you can find an engineer who says, oh, here's your problem right here. They should have used, Teflon, blah, blah, blah material. Instead, they cheaped out. They wanted to save $500 a camper by using this material, not reinforcing the frame. I'm wondering, what do you know about that, if anything at all?
Well, first of all, since Lippert is actually not an RV maker, there's a supplier. So it's a teamwork. So for example, Grand Design is an RV maker. We don't really know, but it seems to be a collaboration between Grand Design saying, hey, make me a frame for these specs, and then Lippert making it. And it's so easy that way for them to point fingers at each other. Lippert can just say, oh, we're just building them to what Grand Design asked for. Grand Design can come back and say, no, they didn't build it to what we need. And then the stance they're taking is, oh, well, the customer isn't using it right. They're putting too much weight on it, or they're driving it too much, or something like that. So everyone's pointing fingers. One thing that I'm hearing, and what got me in trouble, which got me into this video, is I have an industry insider, an informant, who has been telling me what's been going on in the factory floor. He has been sharing with me his concerns about the origin of the steel and the quality of the welds. And it was that information that I shared on my channel, which was very upsetting for Lippert, because this guy pointed the finger directly at Lippert and he blamed them.
Is he still with Lippert?
I can't even really talk about him because I don't,
That's why I'm asking.
I guess I can just say no comment. What he said did not make Lippert look really good at all. And
so it sounds like they have a lot of problems and issues, maybe cutting corners and things like that. And now it's really starting to bite back, because these things can take a few months, maybe a few years to really manifest themselves. Because, first you have the engineering flaw, which is kind of like step number one. Then or the design flaw, engineering flaw, whatever you want to call it. Then you move on to, ordering all the parts. That's step two. Then you have production, right? Step three. Then you have sales. That's step four. And then step five is, the user is now starting to experience the problem. So that can take months or years to go from we designed it this way and now the user is experiencing problems, because the problems probably don't manifest themselves in the first week, I imagine. It may take a few months until they even begin to manifest. So, and you're saying this all stemmed from, essentially, in a nutshell, during COVID, a lot of people decided, you know what, we're going to go mobile. So because we want to explore, we want to live outside, but we also want to be kind of homebodies. So how do we, best of two worlds, how about we get an RV, we get a recreational vehicle, travel the country, and now we are outside and we're also inside at the same time. That problem solved. And that created an influx in demand in RVs. So RV companies, because the supply was here, to keep up with the demand, started cutting corners.
That's exactly what happened. And, like I said, I have been out on the road for 5.5 years, and I saw all kinds of people out in 2020. Teachers, because they were teaching remotely, were out. I mean, there was just a huge millions of people buying these RVs. So what's happened is now the advice is, if you're buying a brand new RV, you need an inspection. I mean, that can cost, $1,000 to get an inspection, but there's so slapped together that that's needed. But if you are buying an RV and are concerned about the frame being inadequate, there's no inspection that's going to find that. It's going to take exactly what you said. It's going to take using it. It's going to take a while, because if that frame is under engineered, it'll be fine probably when it shows up at the dealership, but it's after use. And what I have been seeing and what I've been showing on the channel has been, the frame's just broken. And if you're driving with a broken frame and you don't know it, now think about this. You're driving and you've got this huge, these things weigh, 15,000 pounds. You're driving this home down the road and maybe you hit a pothole and the thing could fall apart. It could just fall apart.
On the road, cause accidents, kill people.
Yes, it's so scary.
Are there any incidents to date where someone is just driving with their RV or their fifth wheel and the thing just breaks apart in the middle of the highway, or are we still on the lookout for those?
No, I hope it doesn't come to that. I mean, these are some of the things that, I talked about with the informant, that it's a concern. It's a concern. Yeah. And, like I said, the companies right now are pointing their finger at the end user, saying, oh, well, you've overloaded it, or you've gone on a bumpy road, that kind of thing. So they're not taking responsibility.
Sorry, that angers me so much. Oh, they're finding ways. It's whenever you're being accused of something, all you have to do is just point the finger back and say, no, we didn't do anything wrong. It was you. But here's the problem. It only works the first few times. By the time it becomes a known problem and you have 100 of them, I mean, you really want to say that 100 recreational vehicle owners have been misusing their equipment, and it's the exact same RV, exact same model, more or less around the same year built. I mean, come on. At that point, it becomes obvious.
Right. So, and I'm a member of some Facebook groups of people with these big fifth wheels, and it's unbelievable how many people have signs of broken frame, how many people are going through it. And in some cases, it's not a question of if, but when the frame fails. And it's very scary. I did a video about 6 months ago about a Grand Design model. I think it's like a 42 or 45-foot fifth wheel. I think it's a 45-foot fifth wheel, the 390 RK. And that Facebook group is full of people worried. They can't even sell their fifth wheel because dealers know about it. So I have a friend that bought his in 2022, at the end of 2022, to full time in it. He had problems with it and he sold it a year later because the frame was failing. Grand Design did step up and try to fix it, but he didn't believe that the fix was going to be long term. You know, he felt like it was just going to be a patch job. So he sold it for about 50,000. I think actually he paid 150. So he sold it for 50, lost 100 grand in a year. Wow. Can you imagine?
No, that's despicable what these companies are doing. So I guess my final question, at least on this particular topic, is let me phrase it this way. Tiffin is under a microscope right now because of their failing frames, but the frames are being manufactured and designed by, again, is it Lippert?
Yeah. So actually Tiffin does mostly motorhomes. So right now they're having some problems like the people I featured, but mostly it's Grand Design that's having, because they are a huge seller of these big trailers.
So Grand Design is also selling. Okay, so I'm going to the distributors. Okay, so the distributors, if I want to buy one of these, fifth wheels or RVs or whatever, why isn't it affecting all companies? Why is it just Grand Design and Tiffin? Why are these two under a microscope? What about, I'm trying to think,
Alliance?
Alliance.
Yes, it is affecting the other ones. Grand Design's the #1 seller. So it's hitting them first just because of the numbers game. But my friends that I talked about that had to leave Arizona, drive all the way up to Indiana, they have an Alliance. So it is affecting the other companies too. Now, I do have a friend who has a Riverstone. Their frames are made differently, a different process, and they have not had a problem. But, this Lippert, like I said, it supplies 80% of the RV market, if not more.
Understood. Okay. So this is not just the reason Tiffin was your top of mind and why you got in touch personally with Lee Tiffin was because you called out in your first video, Tiffin has a problem. This is before you knew this is an industry-wide, type of deal. And that's why Lee was like, wait. How much? How can we get you to shut up and stop, permeating this against us? Because now our competitors are going to start making money. We're going to go down, even though it's for them, they just don't want to be called out. I get it. I understand. But here's the problem. If they don't get called out by you, then who? You know what I mean? So
right.
I applaud you for your efforts. I mean, it's so noble. You could have walked away with a more than $500,000 prize, with a contract and a deal, and become a spokesperson. You would have been set for life, Liz. And you chose not to because you have a heart, you have a soul, and you want to protect people from injury and death. And you can't put a price on it.
Exactly. I mean, thank you for that. I am on a mission to hold the RV industry's feet to the fire, to have them do right, to take care of the customer, to stand by their product. If they're making this product and it's meant to be driven down the road because, hey, it's an RV, then by gosh, build it that way. Build it from the frame up so that it can withstand what they're saying it can withstand.
Exactly. And don't use those BS excuses that, oh, you're just misusing it. That's why it's failing. I mean, come on. If you, I'm trying to think of how you could really, like, let's say you go down a dirt road and something, I don't know, but for a frame to fail, you really need to abuse the crap out of that thing. Like you can't just, I mean, they're designed for going like uphill, downhill, on the highway. They're designed to withstand longevity. They're designed for years and years and years of use, and even minor abuse. There's, at least I think they're supposed to be, right? Because who in their right mind just keeps it on the highway? You're going to go off path. You're going to go off the trails, you're going to go into these little RV camps, which sometimes can be a little rocky to get to. Like, come on, it's obvious. You know, it's the purpose of the product. So if you're not keeping that in mind, that is the fault of the manufacturer. That is not the seller, because the seller is kind of like at the end of the line. But the seller is going to get the brunt of the hit, and then they're going to go up the chain of command, and that's between them and their chain of command. That you don't get involved as the user of the RV. You know, you deal with the seller, and then the seller deals with their manufacturer and provider and all that. So it's kind of like insurance companies battling it out after you get paid or whatever.
Exactly. So these RVs are typically sold with a 1-year warranty, just 1 year.
Seems so low.
Yes. And often I'm talking to people where they have failed within that year, but mostly it's been like between year 1 and year 2. And the response from the RV manufacturer is, you're using it too much. Well, oh, come on. I know.
It's designed to be used daily. Am I wrong here?
Well, there does seem to be some pushback from some of the RV companies that they're not meant to be lived in full time. Well, what difference does it make if you live in it 6 months? You know, I mean, what difference does it make? I mean, you could probably use it every weekend and put more wear and tear on it than if you're moving, you know, a month at a time. So that 1-year warranty is crazy. It tells you how much they believe in their product if they're only going to warranty it 1 year.
I think I've had pillows that had like longer warranties than RVs, as odd as it may sound, or mattresses. I think I have a mattress that's like a lifetime warranty or a 10-year warranty or something crazy. It's one of these UNESCO mattresses. Here you go, a free plug for you all. But it's amazing actually. But anyway, I digress. Yeah, that's absolutely wild. So I did have one final question and now I lost it. Oh, I remember. Okay. So Liz, with respect to recalls, you said that there is not a recall, industry-wide recall yet. However, what is the likelihood, based on what you have been seeing, based on the Facebook group interaction, based on your inside sources, is there a possibility of a recall for RVs, motorhomes, etc., fifth wheels?
Yes, that's the best recourse. So the people that have the 390 RK, where everybody's the big one, Grand Design, they have started a movement for that. I did a video and I mentioned it. You want to, if you know that you have a broken frame, you want to register it with NHTSA, the National Highway Transportation, and you want to register it. You want to include photos, repair orders, everybody that's had a broken frame. If they register it, then that's the first step to getting a recall. But as you know, a recall can take years, but it does seem like that's the best direction. And that I highly support that. If we have all these broken frames, then there's a problem.
If people who are watching this, let's say they have an RV of their own that is experiencing the same problem, or they have a friend who is experiencing a similar problem, would it be okay for them to reach out to you? And before you answer, how, and tell us about what is the best way to watch your videos as well.
Yeah, so if you are having a problem with your RV, first of all, I'm so sorry. You should see my inbox, but you can email me, liz@lizamazing.com, and just share a little thumbnail sketch of your story, and I will try to help you. I have really been getting good results. I have been able to facilitate buybacks, factory repairs. I've even had people fly in, like Grand Design service techs fly in and take care of people. So I'm really proud of my track record of getting results and getting the help that people need. And my YouTube channel is Liz Amazing.
Is it at Liz Amazing, LizAmazing?
That's it.
So Liz, if you don't mind my asking, could you tell us, how did you get involved in this industry in the first place? And how did you acquire your familiarity with RVs and get involved into all of this with Tiffin and so on?
That's a great question. So I am actually on, I think, RV number 10. I started out as a weekend.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I started out as a weekender and then I went full time in November 2018, living full time in my camper van. I quickly upgraded to a fifth wheel, which is a bigger travel trailer, and then another fifth wheel, a couple motorhomes. So now I have been full time traveling for 5.5 years. And
Wow.
I had an RV channel on YouTube, basically about tips and tricks for RV life. But about 8 months ago, I started doing videos and have become an RV advocate for people that buy new RVs and that turn out to be lemons because there's been a huge drop in quality in these new RVs. And I've become an advocate for them, basically shaming these manufacturers on YouTube, shaming them to do the right thing by these people and take care of them. And I've been getting great results. I've been getting help for these people.
And
So
when
it's
you, sorry,
I was just going to say, so it's just a great feeling to be using my channel as a force of good and making a difference and helping these people.
I admire that. Also, when you say lemons, of course, you're referring to lemon law. For those of us who may not be familiar with the concept, could you please tell the ladies and gentlemen of the audience, what does that mean? What does this mean when an RV becomes a quote unquote lemon?
When it becomes a lemon, basically it means that you have bought a defective RV and you have tried to get it repaired. You have made at least 3 attempts as far as, well, actually either the dealer or the manufacturer has made at least 3 attempts to fix it, still have problems. Then you have a case, and you as an attorney might be more versed in this, but you can try and get that RV bought back so that you don't have to keep it. It's not an easy process, but it does
No,
happen.
because then excuse me, not the manufacturer, because then the seller has to literally lose all the money that they made, and it's like coming back to Walmart and returning a hair dryer that doesn't work. Only the difference is the hair dryer is maybe $49.99, and you're like, well, it's not working. And Walmart's like, okay, here's your money back. In this case, you're coming back, it's like, hey, you know what? This $165,000 piece of equipment is not working. I want my money back in full. You're not asking for them to give you a refund minus the mileage you put on it. That's the difference. So that's what
Right.
Liz is talking about. Am I correct,
Right.
Liz?
Yes, and the manufacturer does not want to do it. They're going to fight it.
Of
If
course.
you do win, it's going to be a month's process, many months. You're going to need documentation. You have to document everything. If you have problems, video it, document every conversation, save every receipt. They're going to push back. They're not going to want to do it. If they finally do buy it back, you will have to sign an NDA, and you can't tell anyone. Like, you can't make a YouTube video and say, oh, guess what? My problems are solved. They will not let you do it. The manufacturers of these RVs are so afraid of there being a line out the door of people saying, well, my RV is crappy too. And so they want you to hush up and go away.
It's a tough racket, Liz. It's a tough
Mhm.
racket. Okay, so I think we're pretty much done. I asked you all the questions I had. Unless if there's anything else you want to fill in for Boyan to maybe add on somewhere in the middle, I think we got it.
Okay. We never really talked about about them asking me to take the videos down.
Oh, let's do that. Okay, let's talk about the videos. So just give me a bookmark. They ask you to take the videos down before or after that 18-minute pressure cooker they put you in.
Okay, so that was Tiffin. That was not the people asking me to take the video down.
Who asked you
The
to take
re-
the video down?
Yeah. So the reason why I even talked about Tiffin was my learning about the fact that I have to record everything because this industry can
Okay,
really be
let's so we're just because we're having a conversation, let's make this content. Okay,
right.
so Liz, I'm also coming to understand that somebody has come at you and saying, hey, you, I don't like what you're saying about our RVs and our chassis or frames or whatever. You need to take that video down. Tell us about what happened.
Yes. So I did 2 videos featuring some owners of a Grand Design fifth wheel, and they had a broken frame and they had problems. In the first video, Grand Design had said they weren't going to help them. They were out of warranty. Sorry, you can get it fixed locally and we'll help you there, but no, we're not going to take it back to the factory. And the owners were concerned because at the local level, at their local dealer, they really didn't know how to fix this broken frame. So that was video one. That video caused an avalanche of people saying, hey, Grand Design, do the right thing. Grand Design did. So video two, I said, hey, guess what? Grand Design is picking up their rig and taking it to Indiana and fixing it. But in both of those videos, I talked about the supplier of the broken frame, the frame that failed, and that is Lippert. And I have an industry informant, and I read his comments on both of those videos. Lippert did not like that because this informant did not have good things to say about what he felt the quality of the frames were and what he felt, he felt like this was just going to get worse.
Right.
So their comment, so what the first thing I got was a letter from Lippert directly from their chief legal counsel. And basically, yeah, so this, Lippert's a $5 billion company, and 3.8 billion last year, 5 billion in 2022. He says, have you conducted any investigation or taken any steps to verify independently the veracity of the informant's claims? So basically, they wanted to know what research I had done.
Oh my God.
Right. And I just read his comments. But he has been emailing me for a long time, on the regular for weeks. And I have some information, if you've been an RVer as long as I have, let's just say Lippert doesn't have the best reputation. So, so anyway, I didn't know what to do. And I'll tell you what they asked me. So what happened is I ignored that letter that said, did you investigate? I ignored it. So then I got a cease and desist, and they demanded I take both those videos down, not because of the owners talking about their story, but because I read the informant's comments, and he was basically predicting bad news for Lippert and these frames and people that own the frames.
Or else what? We're going to sue you for defamation, defaming our company, speaking ill will.
Yes.
The truth to defamation is truth, right? That's the easiest defense to defamation is truth. So anyway, please continue.
Yes. So I got this cease and desist. It's a big company, and they're telling me that, we ask you to immediately remove both videos referenced above and stop defaming Lippert. Lippert's concern is not that the statements are critical of its products, it's that they're patently and demonstrably false. The company takes this issue very seriously, and it will not tolerate your falsehoods about the company and its products. If you refuse to cooperate with the demands set forth in this letter, LCI's Lippert. Lippert may bring legal action against you.
Legal action. Have they sued you in any capacity yet? Have you received a complaint in any way, shape, or form?
No.
Because they got nothing. It's an empty threat. I'm sorry. I don't want to predict the future, and I promise you this is not legal advice. But it sounds to me like a cease and I'm going to let you on a little secret, Liz. You know what a cease and desist letter really is? A cease and desist letter is the cheapest way for party A, the aggrieved, to ask party B, which is the perpetrator of the content that you're trying to get them to stop doing, the cheapest way to get party B to stop doing it against party A. You hire a lawyer. Usually you can pay them sometimes as low as $500. They'll write you a cease and desist. Sometimes you can do it even in ChatGPT these days. I mean, you might want to polish it up a little bit, but it'll write you a pretty decent cease and desist. I've seen other lawyers on the internet have posted some, and they're pretty good. I'm not going to lie. I mean, you can tell it's written by AI. The choice of language is the immediate telltale sign, and people like myself can recognize it immediately. But the way AI writes is very predictable, at least at this juncture. It may change, a year from now. But that's all it is. If they really want to come after you, Liz, they're going to have to file a lawsuit. And, there's something called causes of action. A cause of action is the primary driving force of a complaint. So basically, let's say, I already called it out, the easiest one to say, you are defaming our company. You are stating falsehoods. You are spreading them across the airwaves. As a result, our company is suffering damages. I'm just going to pretend, third quarter, we made $1.1 billion, but fourth quarter, we only made 700 million. And your video was released in August, which is during the third quarter. And now here we are in January. It is now the first quarter of the following year. You are to blame for our losses. You owe us $400 million. Here, pay to this bank account. That would be like a classic example of you destroy the reputation falsely. Again, truth is an absolute defense to defamation. If you misspeak about someone, then intentionally or unintentionally, if you're spreading misinformation, that is a surefire way to get slapped with a lawsuit and probably have to pay lots of damages. Alex Jones, classic example. But the problem that they're running into, and the reason I suspect, because when did you receive that cease and desist letter, by the way?
I received it about 10 days ago, and by the way, my response to that was
time.
Yeah, they might. So my response to the cease and desist was to make a video and share that with my audience. And that's how you found me. But I said, what do you all think about this? Because I was pretty ticked that, that this had happened. And all I was doing was sharing what the informant told me. But I got this comment that's really made up my mind about it. And they said, unfortunately, you are the middle person with a platform. You can relay any of the information you receive, but if you don't have any proof to support it, the burden is on you, on me. You can say what you want about broken frames, and if you point fingers at Lippert, you better be able to back it up. The frames are based on engineered specifications for the RV structure. How do you know that rough roads or driver neglect aren't in play? There are lots of variables that could cause frame cracking. You may have opened a can of worms that you maybe didn't want to. And here's the final thing. Without proof of causation, it's just hearsay, which is not admissible in court. And
here's the answer. Sorry,
what?
Go ahead.
No, I just felt like, well, I trust the informant, but I just don't want to have to go down that rabbit hole of, trying to find out.
Well, I hate to say it, but in order to try and shut you up, they may just file a lawsuit just for the sake of filing a lawsuit, try and drain you of your funds because you have to hire a lawyer and get legal fees, incur legal fees. I mean, the problem is, here's the answer. In my opinion, you have an armada, and it's growing, of people suffering the exact same damage. That is already evidence in my book, not hearsay. So LCI is on the back foot, and they know it. Again, be prepared. Since this is fresh, they may be drafting a complaint as we speak, and you may receive it as early as next week, since it's been 10 days since the cease and desist letter. Again, it's not uncommon to try and silence. In a way, you're kind of a whistleblower. You're a user and you have a whistleblower in your back pocket. And now they're trying to shut you all up and shut you all down because you are bringing sales down. People are not buying as much now because you're spreading the message. I watched your video. It was phenomenal. By the way, if you haven't seen her video, go on her channel, Liz Amazing, at Liz Amazing, LizAmazing on YouTube. And I think within like less than 24 hours, because somebody sent it when it was still like at the 20-hour mark, you had like 125,000 views, and that's all organic. That's what really grabbed my attention, was the amount of eyeballs that were interested in what you had to say and how ridiculous the actions of these companies has become. Because look, it's one thing to screw things up. It's another to try and bury it. And it's a totally different ballgame when you're trying to, after failing in your blackmail attempts, to try and silence someone by, sending cease and desist letters. And not only that, potentially filing a lawsuit. Because there's also something called anti-slap legislation, by the way. Do you know what that is?
I've heard about that, yes.
So what are anti-slap laws? Anti-SLAPP is short for Strategic Lawsuits Against Public Participation, and they have become an all too common tool for intimidating and silencing criticism through expensive and baseless legal proceedings. Sound familiar?
Mm-hmm.
So that may be coming, and if God forbid they do that, and you may be able to sue them. And some of the things that you may be able to recoup, by the way, other than your attorney's fees, are damages to your reputation, and I believe tortious interference with business practices as well. So you basically get all the money back you spent on lawyers fighting the lawsuit, that there was the baseless lawsuit, and then on top you also get damages. So you come out on top of where they were in the beginning. Anti-SLAPP laws are meant to provide a remedy to the SLAPP lawsuits, the strategic lawsuits against public participation. They are intended to prevent people from using the courts and a potential threat of a lawsuit, which, by the way, you already have that. You already have a threat of a lawsuit, to intimidate people who are exercising their First Amendment rights. In terms of reporting, news organizations, and individual journalists, which is you are an individual journalist, that you can use the anti-SLAPP statutes, if they are in place in your jurisdiction, to protect yourself from the financial threat of a groundless defamation case brought by a subject of an enterprise or investigative story, and in this case would be the manufacturers and the distributors of these RVs. Under most anti-SLAPP statutes, the person sued makes a motion to strike the case because it involves speech on a matter of public concern. The plaintiff, which would be you, the plaintiff, which would be them, you would be the defendant, but it kind of flips, so it gets a little confusing. But the plaintiff, which is the company, then has the burden of showing a probability that they will prevail in the lawsuit, meaning they must show that they have evidence that could result in a favorable verdict. And those are not easy to prove unless the case is fairly straightforward. And if they cannot meet that burden, the suit is dismissed through anti-SLAPP proceedings. And here it is. Many statutes allow defendants to collect attorney's fees from the plaintiff who filed that initial defamation lawsuit.
So let me ask you this, as far as First Amendment rights. Can I read somebody's comments that are, defamatory to another company? Can I read those comments on air? If
you know that they're defamatory and meaning they are false, your intent doesn't matter. Is that what you're asking?
No. Okay. I don't. So what I'm asking is, if somebody tells me that they work on the factory floor and they know like the welds are suspect and that the steel is not good, and if I share that on my channel, am I at risk even, or do I need to have more proof than just somebody emailing me?
So to answer your question, can you share your sources information from the factory floor on your YouTube channel? The answer is you absolutely can, if you believe your source. Because look at news organizations. They have anonymous sources all the time who give them tips that they rely on, and sometimes they're good tips, sometimes they're not so good tips. And that's what you're doing. You are acting in the capacity of an investigative journalist. Now, you are absolutely, since your platform, you just got your silver play button from Google. You're over 100,000 subscribers. You have a large audience. You have millions of views on your channel, I imagine. You are absolutely exposing yourself to potential liability. However, the problem is, again, if the truth comes out and you were right, then they have nothing against you. They can't. There's no way for them to sink their claws into you. And if they try, then the anti-SLAPP legislation and anti-SLAPP response and anti-SLAPP lawsuit may be in your back pocket to use against them if they just try it as a sword instead of a shield. Because if you are speaking mistruths, and I think this is where I got confused, because you asked, can I defame them? No, if you're defaming them, that means you are speaking falsehoods, knowing that they are falsehoods, or sometimes accidentally speaking falsehoods without a retraction. Because a lot of times newspapers do it all the time. They'll print a retraction. Sorry, we were wrong about this article, and boom, problem solved. But if you speak falsely against someone, knowing that it's false, or with the reckless disregard that it is false, and you don't issue a correction, then that's the time when you open yourself up to liability. So those four things kind of have to be met in sequence, and if they're not met, nothing stops them. I can file a lawsuit against you right now. Now, I don't know what my cause of action is going to be. You know, Liz was smiling too much during my live stream. I really didn't like that. She's taken away my thunder, and my pretty face is now, what can I do? But anybody can file a lawsuit against anybody at any moment for any reason at any time. The question is, does it have merit, and what are your damages? So I would just be on the lookout. Just watch your back. If and when it does happen, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. I have eyes and ears everywhere in this country, and depending on what you need, we can pool our minds together and find you somebody who may be able to assist.
Well, I so appreciate that, because that answers, the question. And I absolutely believe what the informant was saying, but I didn't want to have to do all this digging, to make sure that's actually the truth. But I absolutely believe what he's saying. And you're saying that's enough. That's enough.
Yes, it is enough. You are still exposing yourself to risk. I mean, I personally, my audience knows this. I was sued for defamation by a police officer after I called them out. Unfortunately for him, truth is an absolute defense, and I won. There was another one, I think, who threatened a bar complaint against me. Another one who's threatening a bar complaint against me. Welcome to my life, Liz. When you speak, nobody likes when you speak the truth on them. So trust me, I know how it feels.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for coming on my show. It's been such a pleasure to meet you, and I hope that we get a chance to do this again.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm actually from your hometown. I've spent 30 years in Louisville, but now I consider Lexington home. But yes.
Oh wow. Okay,
Yeah.
very good. I did not know that. Good for you.
Yeah.
I'm in Prospect. I'm on the East End.
Nice. I used to live in Fern Creek. So yeah, we were neighbors.
Oh, yeah. Liz, I wanted to thank you so much for coming on my show. It has been a pleasure meeting you. It has been a pleasure learning about your goals, your aspirations, and what you're doing with your channel. And I wish you nothing but luck and success on it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Larry, for having me on the show. I really, really appreciate it.
You got it, Liz. I'm sure we'll see each other soon.
See ya.
All right, everybody. That was Liz. Amazing. Go check her out. I mean, this thing is just bonkers. It's absolutely crazy how a company openly, unapologetically tries, after she refuses to take the videos down, after she refuses to cooperate, after she refuses to negotiate with their bad faith negotiations. How about we buy you out, Liz? How about we give you some freebies, make you an ambassador, and call it a day? She says, no, I will continue to fight. I will continue to spread the message, because people's lives are in danger due to your conduct, and that is not okay. So Liz, once again, I applaud you for your efforts. Thank you all for watching. I hope you all liked today's show. Raw, law, unfiltered, as I always say, your favorite show on the internet, with your favorite host, the DUI Guy Plus, 6 p.m. every day, no exceptions, Eastern Time, 3 p.m. Pacific, midnight European Central Time. We either release a video, and on Saturdays, we're going to go live. I believe the series is going to start being called SNL, Saturday Night Larry. Bye, everybody.